Okay, so this week on Teen Titans, we have the episode Stranded, which, funny story, I don't remember ever watching this episode before in my entire life. There was one aspect of the episode that I did remember as I was reliving it, so I know I've seen the episode before, but I guess the rest of it just wasn't very memorable to me as a kid, because the rest of it felt like a completely new episode of the show to me, which on one hand was really nice, but on the other hand wasn't great, because the episode, aside from a few highlights, wasn't great. In the episode Stranded, the Titans, while investigating an unmanned space station, I guess, because there weren't any people there, but also it clearly had controls for people. Like, why is that their responsibility to check on that? Anyway, what was that thing? But it doesn't matter. As they're investigating why the communications are down on this space station, they come upon a creature that can just shrug off all their attacks. And after the fight, after Robin and Starfire seemingly are able to defeat the creature by teaming up, Cyborg calls Starfire Robin's girlfriend. It's a bit of friendly ribbing between Cyborg and Robin, who, at least at the beginning of the show, were very clearly meant to be best friends, and I would imagine are still meant to be best friends, even though we don't really see much of that dynamic anymore at this point. And seeing as how Robin was trained by Batman in all things, and therefore is incapable of talking about his emotions, he blurts out that she's not his girlfriend, which leads to a wacky misunderstanding between our main couple, which persists even after they become stranded on an alien planet once the creature proves not to be dead yet and strands them there. It's a lackluster romantic comedy plot. Like, the whole misunderstanding to provide tension trope is so old and so cliched at this point that it's just not interesting. Like, if you know that you're going into the kind of movie or show which makes use of it, and that's the kind of thing you're looking to experience today, then it's fine. But it's not the kind of trope that I expect to make my way into a Teen Titans episode. And even though it led to some good stuff, it made the episode overall feel kind of lackluster. Because, like, obviously the story focus of this episode was Robin and Starfire, who reunite on the planet's surface. They're still separated from Cyborg and Beast Boy, who have found each other, and Raven, who isn't on her own, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But the two of them are, of course, together and have to travel together as they look for their friends. And I don't know, I found Starfire to be very annoying in these scenes. Like, first of all, she saves Robin at one point with a bow and arrow, it looked like. We don't really get a good look at it when he's being chased down by an alien creature. That's when she reveals herself to him and they reunite for the first time. And I don't know why, because, like, later on in the episode we find out her ability to fly is on the fritz because she doesn't feel happy enough to be able to fly, while she remains so confused by what Robin said. But her Star Blast and her eye lasers seem to be working fine, because she uses them fine later, before the whole not being able to fly thing is resolved. So I don't know why she didn't just blast the alien instead of shooting it with an arrow. Were they trying to psych us out and make us think that it was a different character? I really don't understand what the point of that was. So that was already pretty weird. And then, as the two of them are traveling around looking for their friends, she's just being so passive-aggressive towards him. Like, at first I thought she wasn't flying away, specifically because she wanted to keep near him so she could be passive-aggressive towards him. It was nice to find out that she literally couldn't fly at the time, is what I'm saying. But she's still being super passive-aggressive towards him. And, like, there's a really neat twist towards the end of the episode where we find out that she understands what girlfriend means. At first we didn't think she did. At first we're meant to think that she didn't understand it just because of the odd way that she talks. She keeps saying girl who is a friend. But then there's a twist, and we find out that she does understand what it means, and apparently thought that she was Robin's girlfriend up to this point. Or at the very least that he wanted her to be. And so while it was a really cool twist that made use of that aspect of her character for the twist to work, it made her behavior up to this point seem really super insensitive, because if she knows what a girlfriend is, then it shouldn't be that hard for her to understand that Robin just isn't good at talking about his feelings. And I don't see her as the kind of person who would be offended by that. I see her as the kind of person who would try to help him with that. The twist that she currently can't fly, though, is far more satisfying and makes sense based on what we know about her powers. In fact, there's a lot of stuff in this episode. A lot of the best stuff in this episode is drawn directly from the fact that whoever wrote this one, even though the way they write relationships is pretty tropey, they really understand the Titans' powers. And I will freely admit that the conversation that Star and Robin have towards the end of the episode, right before the creature that they were fighting on the space station, the one that stranded them here in the first place, reemerges, it's a good conversation. It's good dialogue. Robin in that scene really sounds like a young guy who doesn't know how to articulate the things that he's trying to articulate to Starfire, the things that he feels about her, and yet at the same time it feels like he's been feeling them for a very long time, and his problem isn't that he doesn't know what the feelings are, he just doesn't know how to put them into words. It was very good, it was very well voice acted. And then there's a scene directly after that, after the creature does reemerge, where the two of them need to fly away in order to escape it. And Robin is 100% sure that Starfire will be able to get them out of there. It showed the kind of trust he has in her, and reestablished their bond immediately. They came to an understanding in that moment, one that didn't require words. That was very nice. But all in all, their stuff was a relatively small part of the episode. This episode got the silly opening sequence, which means this was supposed to be a comedy episode, even though it didn't feel any more like a comedy episode than any second episode of the regular show that isn't comedy episodes. Like, the comedy episodes aren't supposed to have anything really serious in them, but the stuff between Robin and Star, even if I don't think it was handled super well for at least part of the run, it seemed like it was supposed to be taken seriously. But regardless of whether or not it felt like a goofy episode or not, it was clearly intended to be on some level, because it almost felt like 2/3 of the whole freaking episode were taken up by two other plot lines. One where Cyborg has been knocked to pieces by the crash landing, and Beast Boy has to help him put himself and the T-ship back together. And like, I recognized when they were telling a joke throughout this part of the episode. I recognized when the punchline dropped. I recognized when I was supposed to laugh, and I just didn't. Like, there was one scene that I thought was funny where it was the first time, see, I'm laughing at it already just thinking about it. It was the first time Beast Boy tried to reassemble Cyborg, and he ends up reassembling him into a robotic chicken, and there's a bunch of pieces left over, and he just shoves them off to the side like a kid who assembled his Lego toy wrong or something. I thought that was pretty hilarious. And I won't say that I found these particular comedy sequences boring or anything. I was amused by them. They put a smile on my face more than once, but I didn't find them particularly funny. I did like Raven's part of the episode. She bumps into like a little tribe of tiny aliens, and they start following her around, and it's super cute. They keep repeating what she says back to her, and when she tries to fly away from them, because obviously she wants to move on and find her friends, they don't want her to leave, and they understand what she's saying enough to articulate that back to her, and you can see, even though she doesn't want to be here on like an intellectual level, she likes being wanted by them, and it's super adorable. And then she gets a final scene in the episode where she's just kind of accepted that they really want her to be around, and so she's, I don't know how you'd put it, reveling in that, I guess is probably the best way to say it. It was a lot of fun, and that's the part of the episode that I remembered watching the first time through. Like, literally all the stuff with Raven and the little aliens, I remembered that vividly once I was reminded of it. I honestly wish that the Beast Boy and Cyborg stuff in this episode had been downplayed to the point that Raven's part of the episode was, and she had gotten the rest of the screen time to interact with these little aliens more. I also want to back up briefly to the beginning of the episode and point out that even though I couldn't find a good spot to segue to this point, I did think the beginning fight was pretty interesting. I mentioned that some of the best stuff in the episode had to do with whoever wrote it having a good understanding of the Titans' powers. And so I want to make it clear that the initial fight between the Titans and the alien that stranded them on the planet showcased a lot of very interesting interactions between the Titans' powers. It was pretty creative, except that the alien just shrugged off everything they sent his way. Literally everything. To the point that characters like Cyborg and Starfire were equally effective against the creature as characters like Robin were. And I really love the Teen Titans cartoon version of Robin. I think he's up there with the best portrayals of Dick Grayson as a character. And yet, I'm the first person who will tell you that if it came down to it, he'd be pulverized by something that Starfire could fight on equal footing with. Easily. And so the fact that the creature seemed equally unfazed by Starfire's powers and also getting kicked in the face by Robin, that speaks to a lack of creativity. As does the fact that I can think of 3 times off the top of my head in this episode, something happened to Robin. He was put in a dangerous situation or another where he should have died. Being a regular human, he should have died. And Beast Boy, arguably, probably should have died one of those times too. The alien creature, for example, can unleash this scream that's powerful enough that it completely incapacitates Cyborg and Starfire. And yet Robin and Beast Boy are hit by it at the same intensity, at the same range, and they're also just knocked down. And then later on, Robin and Starfire are walking over partially hardened lava, which already should have still been hot enough probably to severely burn Robin. But then it erupts under his feet, and it just knocks him into the air when it should have boiled all of his skin off of his bones. And then he starts to fall down into a little ravine with lava running in the bottom of it, and it's not a very wide ravine, so all the heat from the lava would have been shooting up between the 2 walls of this ravine, turning the whole ravine effectively into a convection oven, and yet Robin falls partway down into the ravine and isn't cooked alive. I know this is super nitpicky, but Robin didn't have to be hit in the face by lava, and he didn't have to take a direct hit from the alien's sonic abilities. There were ways to write this where it made more sense, and it wasn't written to make more sense, and that annoys me. All in all, this is an okay episode of the show with a few standout moments that I don't think I'll forget anytime soon now that I've seen this episode as an adult. The rest of it, though, I don't expect to remember it in T-minus 10 minutes. 5 internets to whoever can tell me what that was a reference to in the comments section down below. Anyway, what did you guys think of the episode Stranded? If you have seen it, let's get a discussion again in the comment section down below or over my Discord, link in the description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.